Tonight on CTV News at 5.
It's a Christmas tradition that dates back decades, but this year's festivities will look ahead to a solemn anniversary. We're live at the Boston tree lighting tonight.
Live from the Maritimes News Center, this is CTV News with Maria Panapallis and Jason Baxter.
Hello, everybody. Maria is off tonight. I'm Jason Baxter, and thank you for joining CTV News at 5.
That's right. I'm Anna Almeida, and Jason just took the words right out of my mouth. I was going to thank you for Well, tonight we are celebrating the long-standing friendship between a maritime province and a major American city.
Cindy Day is live in Boston, ready to go as Beantown prepares for its annual tree lighting. We'll check in with her in just a moment.
That's right, and we'll look at how our cultural ties can also create business opportunities.
Fun fact, New Englanders like beer too.
Maritime companies use the annual tree lighting ceremony as an opportunity to expand the business links between our two regions. Laura Brown examines what they hope to accomplish this week, coming up.
You almost turn into a little kid at Christmas yourself.
And it's a buddy-buddy shopping trip like no other. Cape Breton Regional Police go to the mall with some local youngsters tonight.
But as we mentioned, first at 5, the Boston tree lighting ceremony. So let's get right to it. Cindy Day joins us now live from the Boston Common.
Yeah, Cindy, how does the giant white spruce from Nova Scotia, how does it look?
It looks magnificent, Anna and Jason. In fact, it's not lit up yet, but the minute they hit that switch, it's going to be magical. It's behind me here on the Boston Common, and I couldn't be more thrilled to be here. It's my 5th year, and every year the energy seems to go up another level, and that energy will continue to rise, of course, because next year is the 100th anniversary of the Halifax explosion. There's so much history and so much that connects these two cities. I'm standing on a lot of history right here, Boston Common, established in 1634, and exactly where I'm standing, back in the late 1800s, cattle were grazing on the Boston Common. So a lot of activity, the hub of this city for many, many, many decades, and tonight the hub of the Christmas lighting. And it really is the unofficial start to Christmas. There are other beautiful Christmas trees in the city of Boston, but you know what? This is the one that Mayor Marty Walsh comes to. He flips the switch. There's all kind of entertainment on stage. In fact, we have local Nova Scotia entertainers that will take the stage as well. The town here will be here, and we have dignitaries. It's such an exciting time, and as I mentioned, this excitement is only going to grow over the next 370 days as we get closer to the 100th anniversary. There are a lot of things that are already in the works, and we heard from representatives of both Nova Scotia and Boston earlier today.
Just 2 weeks ago, with an air of excitement usually reserved for Christmas morning, school children in tiny Ainslie Glen, Inverness County, sent this beautiful white spruce on a 1,200-kilometer journey. Its destination is here on the Boston Common, where it's set to once again ring in the Christmas season for Bostonians and remind them of a grateful province. After Halifax's darkest day, the people of Massachusetts responded with help so desperately needed. It solidified a friendship already formed by cultural and historical ties.
And to say thanks to the people of Boston.
Those ties were top of mind today at this event in Boston. Representatives from both cities gathered to both celebrate their partnership and look ahead to next year, the 100th anniversary of the explosion.
The city's been working on this for a couple of years, set up a committee, and we're looking at a number of things, including a lot of work around Fort Needham Park, where we do the actual commemoration each year. But, you know, the Mayor of Boston, Marty Walsh, is very interested in this, and has just reiterated to me that he wants to have a representative on the committee.
Also today, a website was launched called 100 Years, 100 Stories. Nova Scotia Premier Stephen McNeil says the goal is to both educate and remember.
We're excited to be able to begin next year to tell them, and it's called 100 Years and 100 Stories, to mark that. There are a number of them that will come out of Nova Scotia, and it's our hope some of those stories will come from here. The way to be able to follow the trek, quite frankly, of the good people of Boston.
The Mayor of Boston is quick to express his gratitude for the gift of the tree and is also looking ahead to next year's commemorations.
Mayor Walsh, every year this is quite a celebration and important for the cities of Halifax and Boston. What makes this coming year even more so?
Well, I want to first of all thank the people of Crown Lands, Cape Breton for this beautiful tree. Every year it's the most special year. Just this continuing appreciation for the people of Boston going to Halifax when they needed it. It was just an incredible gesture every single year. So every single year it's special. And certainly the 99th year since the explosion, heading into the 100th anniversary next year, it continues to force that strong bond between both places.
Officials and residents from both cities grateful for this friendship, one forged by tragedy, still marked each year by a symbol of the season. From the heart of a tiny Cape Breton community to downtown Boston, a gift from a grateful province and a sign of a lasting friendship.
Absolutely amazing, the energy that you feel here on the streets. 3 people today came up to me and said, thank you. Thank you for sending the tree, and we're going to be at the tree lighting. So you can really sense that connection between people from Boston and Nova Scotians. So it's going to be a magical evening here. Stay right where you are, get your cup of tea and sit down. We're going to show you some highlights. Our own Laura Brown was out chatting with some people here in Boston. She'll have some information, and we'll talk to her too. And the town heroes will take the stage behind me. We're going to chat with them and see how they feel about being chosen from Nova Scotia to represent the province and this wonderful gesture, the gift of the tree. So we'll have all that. Stay right where you are, and the weather as well, leading into a very important weekend. Christmas Daddies is on Saturday, so I'll have your forecast details. Anna and Jay?
We'll be talking about that in just a moment, Cindy. Thank you very much. As Cindy mentioned, lots more coming up from Boston. Right now, though, let's check in with Steve Murphy for a preview of CTV News at 6. Steve?
All right, Jay and Anna, thank you. On our news at 6 tonight, this first day of December is a white and wintry one in New Brunswick. Snow-covered roads made for treacherous driving conditions today, power failures and school closures. Public transit in the Fredericton area closed down at noon today. The heavy wet snow knocking out power for a second day in a row. And on the Nova Scotia side of things, high winds and heavy rains causing some disruptions as well. High-sided vehicles restricted on the A. Mary McKay Bridge in Halifax. And several schools closed early today due to power failures. Many fishermen in Eastern Passage stayed on shore because of the conditions. We'll have more on that coming up on CTV News at 6. Right now, it's back to Boston Common with meteorologist Cindy Day. We've had just about enough winter, and it's only the first day of December. It's not even winter yet.
No, you're absolutely right, Steve. It's quite a mess across the Maritimes. Not obvious here in Boston. Often people say, and I hear them say, you know what, look out the window, or, you know, check and see what's happening in Boston. That's how I forecast. Well, I hope I can send this to you because it was a magical day today with lots of sunshine and very warm temperatures. Well, let's have a look at our storm tracker, and you'll see exactly what I mean when I say it was a mess across the Maritimes. Some of you had some rain that wrapped up. It's still raining, as they say, enthusiastically in some parts of the region. That rain snow line sits across southern regions of New Brunswick. There are warnings in place. There's a less wet wind warning in place for the Inverness County north of Mabou. And then those heavy snowfall warnings have just been lifted for Fredericton and Woodstock, remaining in place for the northern regions of New Brunswick. The winds are quite gusty. They'll continue to gust out of the east and southeast. They'll turn to the west overnight tonight, and that's going to bring the gradual clearing. And in terms of temperature, well, it was a pretty fair day if you just look at the temperature. If you didn't look at the storm tracker, it looked quite comfortable for the end of November, all around the freezing mark, but generally speaking, not the greatest day. We're saving the best for the weekend. I'll have your weekend forecast coming up a little later on in the show. Anna and Jason?
Or Steve. Thank you, Cindy.
Or Steve.
Meteorologist Cindy Day is back from Boston with a detailed forecast here at 5:30. An update with the national conditions and the 7-day forecast with Cindy at 6. The countdown is on for Nova Scotia's teachers to begin their work to rule on Monday. In all of this, a big question is, what will be the effect on student supervision? School boards and the provincial government still aren't sure how many schools have already dealt with this issue. Many parents and students say they are still in the dark. And again, the work to rule begins on Monday. We'll have more on this in our news at 6 tonight. And we're hearing from the daughter of a Halifax explosion survivor as she reads her father's words. He was just 15 on that fateful day, and he wrote down what he saw as he made his way home from school. These are memories from the past. Tonight on CTV News at 6. After we continue here, special edition of Live at 5 with Anna and Jason.
Steve, thank you very much. I cannot wait to see that story coming up. And as Steve and Cindy both mentioned, it's been another wintry weather kind of day in parts of New Brunswick. No break at all for people in the northwestern parts of that province.
You're right. And here's CTV's Ashley Blackford with a look at how, they're holding up.
Residents in Woodstock need a break from shoveling.
Well, I don't mind snow, but I don't like it being quite this heavy.
That heavy snow landed across many parts of the region. The northwestern part of New Brunswick woke up to another blanket of white stuff on top of yesterday's 30 centimeters.
We're going to get it. There's no chance of avoiding it. We live in Canada.
The wet snow made for slushy roads and less than ideal driving conditions.
I just come back from an inspection downtown, here in town. They're not bad, they're a little greasy, but the Public Works Department's out plowing and salting. I've heard numerous reports through Facebook or Twitter that the highway's bad.
Police across the Maritimes are telling drivers if they don't need to be on the roads to stay home. Along with a warning for motorists who are out driving to use caution is a warning to those out shoveling. First responders say with the heavy snow can come injuries for both young and old.
Snow's heavy. It's even heavy for myself, and it's, like I say, I helped my neighbor this morning do it. And I see some out doing it. They got to use caution. They got to take their time, or get a neighbor, get another young individual to help assist. And it's heavy snow, which is not good for seniors or even young people if they don't use a proper method of shoveling.
It really is heavy snow. It's really wet.
It may have been wet, but Nick Hallett didn't find it cold.
So I'm out here in a t-shirt shoveling. I mean, even though there's a bit of freezing rain or something going on, it's not that bad.
And the worst appears to be over in terms of snow, which is welcome news for those who've spent the past 2 days clearing away the early signs of winter. Ashley Blackford, CTV News, Woodstock, New Brunswick.
Well, we'll find out if they get a break a little later on. Coming up next, celebrating the ties that bind Boston and Nova Scotia and benefit both areas.
The people of Boston once came to our aid in Halifax, and I think it's a good example of the natural collaboration between us.
We'll take a look at what some maritime businesses hope to accomplish when they visit the Boston area this week. It's back to Massachusetts next.
Coverage of the Tree for Boston is sponsored in part by Communications Nova Scotia.
Welcome back to CTV News at 5, live from the Boston Common. I get a little giddy when I say that. It's my 5th year here, and it never gets old, and it's just so exciting to be standing here at the Boston Common. We're here because the Christmas tree gift from Nova Scotia is going to take center stage in just a couple of hours and come to life with song and music, and it's going to be just magnificent. Now, I also like coming here because I feel at home. I'm standing in another country, another city, but I feel like I could be in Halifax. In fact, there's so many connections between Nova Scotia, Halifax in particular, and Boston. And some of them are cultural, some of them are family. A lot of people say I've come to Boston because my daughter lives on the outskirts or my son's family is here. There's also the sporting connection. Jamie and Brenda McDonald over there from North Sydney, they're here to see a hockey game. I told them not to waste their money. They could just stay at the Christmas tree lighting, but they're going to go off and see the Boston Bruins play. But there are so many connections here in Boston between the two cities. Now, CTV's reporter Laura Brown spent the day here. It's your first time in Boston for the Christmas tree lighting.
That's right.
And you were examining and trying to find some of these connections. And what did you find?
Well, I spent the day speaking to many maritime businesses that are here right now today in Boston. And I learned a lot about some of the opportunities they're finding because of this wonderful tradition.
It's a symbol of what Nova Scotia is known for, its beauty and its generosity. But it turns out this tree has sparked something else.
Fun fact, New Englanders like beer too.
Brian Titus, the president of Nova Scotia's Garrison Brewing Company, has been in Boston since Monday, meeting with potential distributors.
We were entirely prepared to just see this as a reason to perhaps not come here, just to do a fact-finding and realize that this wasn't a good business decision. Right now, the opportunities are very much out there.
He's part of a 12-company multi-sector trade mission, introducing Nova Scotia products to New England. It's the first year they've done this, something that branched from the Tree for Boston.
It sells itself.
It's his wife's creations, original paintings that have moved from the canvas to fabrics. Gary McCullum believes he has something great, so he also took the opportunity to come to Boston on this trade mission, hoping he can grab the attention of distributors.
Quite a few people are getting it. They understand that it's a luxury product and that it can work in certain markets.
He's already signed with one U.S. distributor.
The United States is Nova Scotia's biggest customer, but a 2015 report commissioned by the Nova Scotia government said the province needed to do better at getting itself out there, making people aware around the globe of what Nova Scotia can offer.
I believe we need to go beyond just Atlantic Canada and build on our friends.
This week, the province signed a memorandum of understanding with the University of Massachusetts. Sharing the same seaboard, the two sides will be able to share information and resources when it comes to researching what's below.
The people of Boston once came to our aid in Halifax, and I think it's a good example of the natural collaboration between us that's been going on for over 100 years.
Paul Hill also traveled to Boston this week from Dartmouth, where he works for MedOcean Telematics, a company that helps gather data, often underwater. He told us that this MOU will mean more minds on both sides of the border working together on ocean research.
If that means funding, if that means collaborative efforts on intellectual property exchanges, whatever the case is, it's an actual mechanism to make that happen.
So we're very much a small fish in a big pond here in Boston.
Titus has been surprised at the positive response to his product, but he claims, of course, this isn't just another craft beer. It's one that's keeping with the spirit of the tree.
We have brought that story into every meeting we went to, and for the most part, they didn't fully understand, and they were really quite fascinated by the fact that there was this real connection between Boston and Halifax.
And it's not over yet for some of those companies, Cindy. I talked to Garrison Brewing, which you just heard from, and they actually extended their trip here this week because they have so many meetings. They couldn't fit them all into a couple of days. So they've actually extended their trip.
It's so encouraging.
It's amazing, yeah. It's incredible. And you see people along the streets
Well, I saw you on the street interviewing someone, and I thought she's literally taking it to the streets. There she is talking to people from Nova Scotia who have a business idea, and they're here sharing that.
It's really neat to be in Boston and see people from Nova Scotia right here, and to come up to us and be so excited that they're from Nova Scotia, but they're here right here in Boston.
It's like being home.
It is. It is.
Let's stay a few more days.
I think so.
I think we will. And Jason, thank you.
All right, Cindy and Laura, thank you very much. Yeah. Still to come tonight, cops and kids go on a Christmas shopping spree.
I can't wait for that. But coming up next, get your tickets ready. The results of the St. John Hospital prize draw. Will you be the winner? Ooh, drum roll. Find out next when CTV News at 5 continues.
Hi, and welcome to the top 2 draws in the New Brunswick Hospital Home Lottery, including this amazing grand prize show home in Rothsay, New Brunswick. With me are representatives of the St. John Regional Hospital Foundation, Jeff McAloon, and their board chair, Steve Titus, as well as Shannon Olson of Deloitte, who oversees this whole process. Jeff, I'm going to get you to start spinning that drum. And while you're doing that, Shannon, explain to us how this all works.
Sure. Deloitte is pleased to be the ticket issuance and draw control services provider for the 2016 Home Lottery. For all tickets purchased prior to the sales deadline of November 18th, there's a numbered token in the draw bin, and for all tokens in the draw bin, there's a ticket holder in our computer database. So in a moment when the token is drawn, I'll read the ticket, or read the number, I'll repeat it, and I'll hold it up for the viewers at home to see.
Excellent. Okay. Well, you've given the drum a good spin. Shannon's going to unlock it, and Steve is going to do the honors and draw for the first. Oh, okay. Now, of course, we have to make sure all those tickets are down in with the others. There's a few more up there.
So why don't I tell you about this exciting prize? This first prize, the winner is going to have their choice of 2 beautiful 2017 Lexus vehicles. They can choose either the SUV or the sporty model, or $55,000, which I think is pretty exciting.
Those are great prizes. Yeah, there's just a couple more up there.
Excellent.
There we go. I think we got everything.
Everyone's in this draw.
All right,
okay.
Steve, reach in there.
Here's the great moment.
Draw out the winning number for our first prize in the New Brunswick Hospital Home Lottery. You give that to Shannon, and she'll read the number.
Sure. The number is 014585. That's 014585.
And you'll hold that up for the camera. And while we're waiting to find out who the winner is, Jeff, tell us, you already told us what they're going to win, but let's find out a little bit more about this home.
So this home we're going to draw for in a few minutes is a beautiful $900,000 show home, 4 bedrooms, 3,000 square feet. Over 5,000 people have come through this home. It is absolutely stunning.
We have a winner. Okay. Steve?
Thank you. Thank you. Well, this is very exciting. So the winner of the Lexus in our hospital home lottery is Elizabeth O'Hearn from St. John.
Congratulations.
Congratulations, Elizabeth. Now, that token is going back in the drum because she gets a chance to win the grand prize.
That's right. Just like all of our 1,500 prizes, the tokens go back in the draw drum every time.
Right. So you're going to give it another few spins.
This just gives us more of an opportunity to talk about how important this program is. Steve, maybe can fill you in on how important this is to our hospital.
Sure. I mean, this is our 9th draw, actually. And in the previous 8 years, we've actually raised over $6 million for programs at our local hospital. And some of those programs are provincial, and some of them are more local. It's for equipment, it's for mental health programs, it's for research, education, things that really make a difference in our community.
That's wonderful. Okay, so
all right,
here we
go. We're going to reach in this time and draw one token.
One token.
The lucky one winner. Okay, Shannon, we have one
token. We do. The number is 012056. That's 012056.
And again, we'll hold that up for the camera to zoom in and take a look at.
I cannot wait to find out. Folks have purchased tickets from all across New Brunswick.
Yeah, you were saying that earlier. Yeah, that's wonderful.
We have people from north, west, east, south of New Brunswick. People realize how important this program is to provincial health care, and we're really grateful for their support.
Right. Okay, and now Shannon, explain to us how the winners are notified.
Sure. All the winners will be notified in writing from Deloitte. They'll get a letter that will indicate the prize they've won and how they can claim that prize. All the top winners will be published in the Telegraph Journal as well as on the website, which is nbhospitalhomelottery.com on December 8th.
Wonderful. We have a winner. Whoa, okay, Steve.
Thrilling. So the winner of the grand prize show home is Shirley Barton from St. John.
Congratulations, Shirley. The folks from Deloitte will be in touch with you soon. And now, back to the studio.
Well, congratulations to the winners there.
I know, very lucky people. All right, now we'd like to introduce you to the Maritimers who are marking milestones this evening. We start by wishing a happy 60th anniversary to Lawrence and Shirley Wynn of Brookfield, Nova Scotia. And tonight is a remarkable, get this, 78th anniversary for Lou and Marion Hamilton of Knoll Shore, Nova Scotia. Now, on to the photographs.
Here we go. Tonight is a 50th anniversary for Marjorie and James St. Amand of Plasterbrook, New Brunswick.
Frida and Alden Miller of Brookfield said their vows 60 years ago.
And it's also a diamond anniversary for Sterling and Janet Lamoureux of Centerville, New Brunswick.
This smiling couple is Rose and Keith Tupper of Scotts Bay, Nova Scotia. They were married 60 years ago.
We're also wishing a happy diamond anniversary to George and Lucienne Comeau of Beaverbrook, New Brunswick.
Congratulations are extended to Annie and Edgar Whitney of Riverview on their 60th anniversary.
Here they are, pictured on their wedding day 60 years ago. This is Ray and Pat O'Donnell of Carroll's Crossing, New Brunswick. Tonight also marks actually 65 years of wedded bliss for Ken and Anna Goff of Plaster Rock. Stella Collicutt Stewart. Many loved ones thinking of Stella tonight on her 100th birthday. We are too. Happy birthday, Stella.
Yes, and big congratulations to you and to everyone celebrating tonight. And of course, if you'd like to see your milestone again, just head over to atlantic.ctvnews.ca.
It's time now to check in once again with meteorologist Cindy Day, who is in Boston tonight, home to her beloved Bruins. Cindy.
Oh, that's good.
Stop it, Baxter. I didn't even go near the TD Garden, just in case I would develop that rash I had last year when I stood in front of the building. It's a terrible thing. But they are in town tonight. I'm here. They're at the TD Garden. That's just fine. But you know who else is here? A lot of Nova Scotians. Right now, the people have not started to move into the common area because the show doesn't start for a little while. But the people who have arrived early are from Nova Scotia. And just on the tail end of your anniversaries and milestones, I just want to wish a happy birthday to Bruce Gillis. And he is with the Town Heroes. His birthday was day before yesterday. He's celebrating here in Boston. And he actually escaped the bad weather in Cape Breton to come here and enjoy some drier conditions. Now, the weather is going to get better across the Maritimes over the next 12 hours or so, I promise. And in fact, we're saving the best for the weekend. And so this is how it looked at Frog Pond here in Boston, just about a stone's throw from where I'm standing a little earlier today. The temperature in Boston, incredible, 12 degrees earlier this afternoon. It's going to start to tumble a little bit. Temperatures across the Maritimes will stay fairly steady. Precipitation will end. I'll tell you what it looks like for tomorrow and Christmas Daddy's Saturday forecast coming up right after the break.
That is the beautiful Massachusetts State House in the Beacon Hill neighborhood of Boston. Built in 1798, designated a National Historic Landmark in the U.S., and you can see why. Cindy, what's the, I'm curious what the conditions are going to be like for the tree lighting tonight. It looks like you have a beautiful evening.
Absolutely beautiful, Jason. And you know what? Yesterday at about this time, we were out walking around just checking out this amazing city, and it was pouring rain, and it was a cold rain, and it was windy, and people were all talking, oh, I hope it doesn't do this for the tree lighting. It couldn't be nicer. The sun came out at about 10 o'clock this morning. The wind has picked up a little bit, but temperatures are so agreeable. It is well above freezing, and it will stay above freezing overnight tonight. So no concerns with weather. There should be a huge crowd here. They expect between 20 and 30,000 people here on Boston Common. And then people watching on the ABC affiliate here in Boston, as many as 300,000. Now, the street that you're seeing here, a little wet. That's because it did rain, as I mentioned yesterday. This is Beacon Street, and in behind Beacon Street is Lewisburg Square, and I'm told it has the highest real estate in the city. So if you have a pocket full of cash, perhaps you're headed to Lewisburg Square. Very, very nice. But you know, even if you have lots of money, it rains on your house, so I'm not sure that it makes a difference. Now, speaking of raining on your house, it's raining and it's snowing, and it's really not pleasant out there in the Maritimes. You can tell by the satellite radar image, that little slice of pink that separates the white and the green, well, that's an ice pellet mix, but there's still a lot of snow showing up. The heavy snowfall warning is still in place for northern regions of New Brunswick, has been lifted now for Fredericton and Woodstock. The rain has pushed into Cobequid area, so that's good news. It was pretty messy earlier today. The western half of Cape Breton is on the snow side of the system. So let's have a look at overnight tonight. Expect a wet snow rain mix for most. Now, see, the temperatures are all around the freezing mark, but with a little dip and a drop in elevation, you could certainly see that change in precipitation. So keep that in mind if you are traveling. But there will be clearing skies by morning, and the temperatures will be a little milder in Nova Scotia, quite obviously. And then tomorrow, not a bad looking day. Northern regions of New Brunswick still caught up in that trough of low pressure. We can expect snow to continue, but elsewhere outside of that line of instability, the southern half of the province, a nice mix of sun and cloud, and the temperatures will be above freezing everywhere, just above in the northeast and then milder along the Bay of Fundy. Over to Prince Edward Island now for tomorrow. Expect mostly cloudy skies. I wouldn't rule out a few sunny breaks. There'll be a few scattered showers and perhaps even flurries where that coolish and drier west wind blows on shore. The west winds will gust to 60 kilometers per hour. Diminish as the day goes on. The high temperature is 2 degrees. Across Cape Breton and the northern region of mainland Nova Scotia, it's going to stay mostly cloudy. Again, the proximity of that trough slow to pull away. Expect a few showers and maybe even flurries in the higher elevations earlier in the day. As the day warms, it'll be about 5 degrees there, so that will be a shower situation. 3 degrees in Amherst, 4 in Truro, 5 and 6 along the eastern shore regions of Nova Scotia. And for the valley and the south shore, anywhere from 4 in Windsor to 7 or so along the south shore. A mostly cloudy day. The winds will have turned to the west, so it's not going to be a cold wind that brings moderate temperatures. The winds will be a little breezy in the morning, but diminishing as the day goes on. Don't rule out the occasional sunny break, and then we're going to save the best for the weekend. For some parts of the Maritimes, we'll talk about that weekend forecast with the 5-day forecast in just a few minutes. Anna?
Thank you, Cindy. Looking forward to that. Must say you look very, very warm.
Thank you. Yes, I feel good with my hat on. I'm ready for anything.
Oh, all right. Well, we will have Cindy back in the show just a little later, but now here's a sneak peek at what's still to come on CTV News at 5.
I'm Ryan McDonald in Sydney, where cops and kids are teaming up on a dream shopping spree and making one another's Christmas just a bit merrier. That story coming up on the CTV News at 5.
Coverage of the Tree for Boston is sponsored in part by Communications Nova Scotia.
Welcome back, everybody. I'll try that again in English in just a moment. Welcome back, everybody. It's time now for Section 6, and we're going to check in again with Cindy Day, who's standing by the Boston Common with Cape Breton's Town Heroes.
That's right. So the guys are in Boston as part of the tree lighting party. And Cindy, are they getting eager to just rock the stage tonight?
Sounds like it.
You know what? I think they are. We were chatting earlier, and there's music behind us, and they're saying, you know, is that going to bother you? Because we want to be on the stage, too. So you're right. They've come here for the Boston tree lighting, the Town Heroes have. And not only did Nova Scotia send its best tree, they sent some of their best entertainers. So we have Mike Ryan. Mike, welcome to Boston.
How you doing, Cindy? It's great to be here.
I'm great, thank you. And original member of the Town Heroes.
One of the founding members.
And Bruce Gillis.
I am as well, yeah. And Mike and I got tired of one another, so drag these two along with us.
So introduce them, please.
This is Aaron Green from Sussex, and I'll let Mike go.
We have Tori Cameron, the pride of Grand River, Cape Breton here to my right.
Beautiful. Now, it's important that you're from Cape Breton because that's where the tree came from. For the very first time, that tree is from Cape Breton.
Yeah, no, we're incredibly honored to be a part of this. My mother was at the tree cutting down ceremony, so I get to be here when it goes up and gets lit, and we're just very honored to represent Nova Scotia and Cape Breton in this whole experience, and we're excited to be here with you, Cindy.
I'm so glad to have you guys next to me. Now, I have to ask you, Bruce, when did you find out that you were going to be the chosen ones on that stage tonight?
We found out about a month ago. A friend of mine texted me who was part of organizing the whole thing, and she fired me a text and said, "You're going to Boston." And I was like a kid in a candy store, right? I was messaging everybody, letting people know, and it's just, like Mike said, it's an honor to be here, and yeah, really, really excited, and so happy to be here.
Did you know a lot about the tradition of the tree giving before this?
Yeah, I did, and I just always watched it and tuned in, and then to be part of it, it just it didn't even feel real till right now, where we're here and did our sound check earlier, and we're excited to play to a big crowd, right? So yeah.
Excellent. Now, speaking of playing to the big crowd, what songs have you chosen?
Well, we're playing one of our original songs called Outer Space, and after that, we're going to surprise everyone with a little Christmas medley.
Oh, beautiful.
And hopefully, if we're lucky, we get to join Belle Biv DeVoe on stage for a song or two. That would be quite exciting. I don't know if that's going to happen yet, but
it could happen. It's Christmas magic. Sometimes these things happen.
Oh, well, it could be a miracle.
Exactly. Now, I have to ask, have you been to Boston before?
I think I was here when I was around 5 years old, so I can't even remember what I ate yesterday, so I don't have a clue what it was like, but this is the first experience for me, and it's been amazing. It's been amazing.
And you added to that experience by doing something special last night?
Yeah, we went to a Boston Celtics game. I represent here with the scarf. They lost to Detroit Pistons, but it was a great game. All of our first time ever at an NBA game.
Oh,
so we got to go to TD Garden and experience the energy and the atmosphere there. It was surreal. So we were very excited to be there.
Speaking of energy, now you're not done. You're going to finish here tonight, and then you're busy for the next couple nights. Tell me about that.
Yes, we grab an early flight this next morning, so we better behave ourselves tonight, and then we play New Glasgow at the Commune, and then the next night we're in Charlottetown, PEI at Baba's Lounge. So this is a pretty common tour for Nova Scotia bands, Boston, New Glasgow, PEI. So.
You know, the usual, right?
Yeah.
Well, congratulations for being chosen to be on the stage. Enjoy this beautiful experience. It truly is a marvelous tradition. I'm glad you could be part of it, and enjoy the rest of your weekend. You're going to be busy, but the people of Nova Scotia and Charlottetown will be happy to have you back. Jay and Anna?
Cindy, thank you very much.
We are happy to have them back. They're awesome.
Absolutely. Love those guys. Another talented band, Kells.
Yes, okay.
Tell us about our contest.
Yes, so just a nice reminder, CTV News at 5 and Sonic Concerts wants you to spend an evening with a Juno-winning band, and that's not all. Also, we're throwing in a night at the Delta, a pair of tickets to the show, and a meet and greet with the band. To enter, just go to CTVatlantic.ca, click on the contest button, follow the prompts, and then you can enter once a day until this Sunday, December 4th. We'll announce the lucky winner on Friday, December 9th, right here during Section 6. So I was going to say very good luck to you, but I don't know if that's correct grammar, so good luck to you.
Sure. Either or. All right, let's, I think we owe it to folks to finish on a high note.
Okay.
What do you got viral video-wise?
It actually features a very sneaky rabbit. I just love him. He's so
That's
cute.
a hand puppet. That's not a real rabbit. Come on.
So his owners were enjoying a nice big bowl of popcorn when he just jumped up and managed to sneak one in for himself, and he enjoyed it. So you can see why this video has gone viral. Since it was uploaded last week, it's been viewed more than 7,000 times on YouTube.
Look at that face.
Isn't that so sweet? Look at that little fuzzy. That is the cutest face I've seen in a long time.
Yeah, sure is.
Yeah.
Oh, you meant the bunny. Oh, I was looking at you.
You thought you were cute?
I was looking at your face. Tried one time to give her a compliment.
Oh, you're sweet.
Oh, well.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Andy. We'll be right back.
Yeah.
And when we come back, one last check-in with Cindy Day in Boston. The White Spruce is decorated. The countdown is on to flip the switch. Back to Beantown next.
Welcome back to CTV News at 5, live from Boston Common. So thrilled to be here for the lighting of our gift to this city, to thank them for the aid that they brought to us during the Halifax explosion or shortly after. So in just a couple of hours, that magnificent tree will be all lit up and beautiful. Now, before we get to that, sometimes I see drawings of trees in our Weather Watcher file. Let's open up the Weather Watcher file and see what we have to share with you. All of our Weather Watchers today come from Holland Road Elementary School. So our first Weather Watcher is 10-year-old Matthew Reed. This is Matthew packing snow. And you can see that he wrote my name and put a Habs logo down. Good for you, Matthew. That's fantastic. Thank you. Next, we have 10-year-old Sadie Bell. This is a boy and girl, maybe Sadie, standing under a rainbow. Beautiful, Sadie. Thank you very much. And finally, we have 10-year-old Lindsay Snow. Beautiful picture of weather-themed dream catcher. Look at that. That is so artistic. There's rain falling from the dream catcher. Thank you very much, Lindsay, and thank you to all of our weather watchers for their magnificent work today. Well, it is time to have a look at our weather, and I'm sure all the weather watchers are curious about that too. We have a storm tracker that's not too pretty, but conditions will improve. If you have plans tomorrow or even the weekend, I've got much better weather coming. The storm tracker shows the rain snow line. It will end from west to east overnight tonight. Temperatures are rather mild, but it's that messy mix, so be very careful on the roads. We still have a less wet wind warning in place, as well as heavy snow north of that Fredericton line, 15 to 20 centimeters before all is said and done. The winds will be gusty, and they continue to gust close to 70 kilometers per hour along the eastern shore regions of Nova Scotia. Look at that wind at Cape Breton at 104. When you wake up tomorrow morning, still some lingering snow across northern regions of New Brunswick. Mostly cloudy, still quite breezy, but the wind will be ending from west to east as the day goes on. So be careful again tomorrow. It's going to be messy, but again, conditions get a little bit better as we head towards the weekend. Now, I just want to take a moment to thank everybody involved in having this show come live from Boston into your living rooms. I know that not all the Nova Scotians could make it here on Boston Common, so I hope you enjoyed seeing a little bit of the sights and sounds of our experience here with the tree lighting in Boston. I want to thank Leo and George and Liz and Mike and everybody behind the camera. Also the good people at ABC Boston. They allow for this to happen thanks to their technical wizardry. So thank you to the people of Boston. Now don't forget the tree lighting is on ABC Boston. You can watch it at home at 8 o'clock your time. So do keep that in mind. In just another hour or so, the Boston Common will fill with almost 250,000 people, 250,000 people. 20,000 people will watch at home, and that's why this message is so beautiful. It's the season of giving. Last Tuesday was Giving Day, and now we're seeing how that message of giving continues from our city in Halifax to this magnificent city in Boston. So thank you to all the Nova Scotians who keep that memory alive. We thank you, and I'm going to say that I'm done here for now. I'll be back with one final weather with Mr. Murphy on CTV News at 6. But for now, back to you and Jason.
Well said, Cindy. Well said.
Very well said.
And I'm loving the Belle Biv DeVal.
Oh, breaking it down.
Not as much as Amanda Debison, though. She got a bad case of it over there.
Very bad case.
That girl is poison.
Oh. Wow. All right. Well, here's your primetime lineup for tonight. 7 o'clock, we have E-Talk. 7:30, The Big Bang Theory. And that continues all the way up until 9 o'clock. 9:30, The Goldbergs. 10 o'clock, a Russell Peters Christmas. And 11 o'clock, your national news. And 11:30, your local news with Amanda Debison. Hopefully she won't have the case.
Let's check in with Heidi and Elise.
Friday on CTV Morning Live, kicking off your Christmas.
For 53 years, the Christmas Daddies Telethon has been helping kids have a happy holiday. We get a sneak peek before Saturday.
News, weather, and more. It's everything you need. CTV Morning Live, Friday.
Driveway, and we put
And tomorrow we'll light it up again in Beantown. We'll bring you the sights and sounds, the highlights from the Boston Common as the city's annual Nova Scotia Christmas tree. It gets lit up. It's the Boston tree lighting ceremony. All the highlights tomorrow at 5 on CTV News at 5. And that's all the time we have for tonight.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. The news continues with Steve Murphy.
All right, thank you, Jay and Anna. And now for this Thursday, December 1st, live and local. This is CTV News at 6. Tonight, make that 2 in a row. December gets a wet, white, and windy welcome.
We've had some people without power, unfortunately, for more than 24 hours.
Walking out, students and parents rally in support of Nova Scotia teachers.
Kids are falling through the cracks, and it's not fair. The government needs to step up and support the teachers.
And survivor stories. Letters recount details of the Halifax explosion.
When we got home, most of the windows in our house were blown in.
Live from our Maritime News Center, this is CTV News. Here is Steve Murphy.
Good evening, everyone. Leading off here tonight with what could be called a wintry double whammy. A second day in a row of school closures and power failures in much of New Brunswick following another heavy snowfall. On the Nova Scotia side, it's been more wet and windy than white, but stormy enough to cause some problems too. Our team coverage begins with CTV's Nick Moore.
The snow began falling just before daybreak. By morning rush hour, Fredericton was in the thick of it. Police were soon responding to vehicle collisions as well as vehicles that were having trouble getting up the hill. By mid-morning, public transit in the capital was shut down. The heavy snow limited visibility all around New Brunswick. Snow turned into mixed precipitation, then rain, making a messy day even messier. The Trans-Canada Highway between the Quebec border and Centreville, New Brunswick was closed due to the bad roads. The second day off in a row for many students. This kind of snow, perfect for making snowmen, but difficult for anything else.
It hasn't been a dry snow, so it's heavy and wet snow and hard to push.
Heavy for trees and power lines as well. Some people went into this storm already without electricity.
So we've had some people without power, unfortunately, for more than 24 hours.
Ellen Sheeran's Fredericton neighborhood lost its power around 9 o'clock last night and was still without it this morning. Others nearby had a bit more luck.
Right down at the end of the street, it was beautiful, all lit up last night. so well, it's nice that somebody has power.
NB Power says it has 157 crews working right now to reconnect outages, with another 25 on the way.
The trees' branches aren't quite frozen, so we're seeing a lot of branches making contact with lines.
NB Power says the majority of customers should have power back by the end of tonight, weather permitting. Nick Moore, CTV News, Fredericton.
I'm Jonathan McInnes in Riverview, New Brunswick. Power went out at 2 a.m. Wednesday, affecting a vulnerable part of our population, residents at this seniors apartment complex.
I'm cold. That's why I have to go back to my apartment and get on some heavier clothes.
The building does have generators providing some heat and emergency lighting, but it's also 5 stories high, and the generator doesn't provide enough power to run the elevators. Louis McDonald lives on the top floor. He says he's able to get to his apartment, but because of health problems, others can't.
Well, the elevator's right there where you come in and...
You just have to go with the flow. The hydro company is doing the very, very best that they can.
Some residents, however, have medical problems, including the need for oxygen. The Riverview Fire Department heard of the situation and did a safety check on the building and its tenants and found nothing wrong.
Crystal Drive is an apartment building that has primary seniors living in it. It's not considered a seniors complex. Management had provided meals, lunch, and supper last night. And this morning, the town of Riverview provided some coffee, donuts as a breakfast.
As for the power, most utilities have a priority response system for responding to customer outages. Here's NB Power's. First, they take care of all emergency or safety calls related to downed lines and fire. Next, it's critical services like hospitals, police and fire stations, water and communications systems. Then it's priority customers, senior and special care homes and those who rely on oxygen machines, followed by repairs that will return service to the largest amount of customers in the least amount of time, then onto smaller neighborhoods and individual customers.
Going outside to take some food from the freezer out to my car.
All from a late fall storm that could be setting the tone for what's to come. And Steve, NB Power did tell me that Lakeview Apartments is registered with them as a priority customer, and the building had its power restored this afternoon.
All right.
Steve?
Thank you, John. CTV's Jonathan McGinnis in Moncton with Nick Moore in Fredericton. Rain and wind hammered Nova Scotia today, knocking out power to hundreds of homes and closing a handful of schools and snarling travel again. CTV's Kellen Sundahl live outside in the weather. What's it like out there now, Kellen?
Well, Steve, it's still wet and windy tonight. The conditions were blustery enough to unseat this giant Christmas tree behind me at City Hall. The weather also kept fishermen away from their traps today. Captain Jamie Osborne thinks he was the only one to leave the dock in Eastern Passage today. He braved the weather to check his lobster traps, but turned back early.
We're only up in the harbor. It's not that bad up there, but outside there, you wouldn't want to be out there.
The start of their season was delayed due to stormy seas. 3 days in, the weather keeps fishermen away from their catch. On the roads, drivers were warned about hydroplaning. The McKay and Confederation bridges closed to high-sided vehicles, and ferries canceled their crossings. The gusts strong enough to break a wire holding up the Christmas tree at Halifax's City Hall. Crews were quick to secure the line. Clearly, a wet and windy day right across the province.
Terrible, but then in Eastern Passage you got to expect the wind and things like that, so it's windy down here. It's really windy.
A handful of schools sent students home early on Prince Edward Island and in Cape Breton because of the weather. In some cases, it was due to power outages. Power crews were working to get the lights back on to maritime customers. Wind warnings are in effect for northern parts of Nova Scotia. Some welcome the rain over the alternative.
Thank God I don't want any snow for a long time.
For those not affected by the weather, it's entertaining to watch.
It's pretty crazy and wet. It's pretty wavy too.
And until the swells die down, the lobster boats will stay tied up.
CTV's Kellen Sundahl. Turns out not everybody stayed on shore today. A boat with 5 fishermen on board started taking on water in southwestern Nova Scotia. Joint Rescue Coordination Centre Halifax received a Mayday call at around 8:30 this morning. The 13-meter fishing boat was 17 nautical miles southwest of Yarmouth. Several fishing vessels responded. The RCC deployed a Hercules aircraft which dropped a pump to the boat. Officials say the situation is stable. The boat is headed back to dock with the 5 fishermen still on board. But as you can see, it was a stormy day on the sea. All the stormy and blustery weather has taken a toll on the St. John water system. The city has declared a boil water order this afternoon for all customers east of the Reversing Falls. The high winds and heavy rain stirring up the water supply.
We had an increase in turbidity, and when we have increases in turbidity, it compromises the effectiveness of the treatment process, where we currently don't have full treatment in place.
A new water treatment facility is under construction, but it won't be in operation until 2018. Officials say the boil order will likely be in place right through the weekend. With the work to rule by Nova Scotia's teachers only 4 days away, a show of support today by some students in Cape Breton. They walked out of school joined by their parents who aren't happy with large class sizes. They're demanding the government return to the bargaining table with the teachers. CTV's Kyle Moore has the story.
Students at Memorial High School in North Sydney walked out of class today, showing support for teachers, hoping the Premier gets the message.
I'm sorry, but a teacher cannot teach 42 students at once. All they want is class caps.
Grade 12 student Julia Snook says her education has suffered because teachers are not able to focus on individual students.
We need better education for ourselves. Like, they're not doing this for themselves, they're doing this for us, to better our education.
Just down the road at nearby T.L. Sullivan Junior High, parents join their children outside the school. Their support evident.
The classroom conditions are horrible. The classrooms are overcrowded. There's not enough funding. Kids are falling through the cracks, and it's not fair. The government needs to step up and support the teachers.
A total of 17 schools are slated to close in the CBRM by 2020. Sherry Wiley and her kids are already feeling the effects, needing to move from a larger school to a smaller one.
Because of that, my oldest son, they recognized that he really lacked in certain skills that he needed, so he was put in resource. But had it been a larger classroom, they would have missed that.
There are many more demonstrations similar to this one planned for the Halifax area tomorrow. But Education Minister Karen Casey says she doesn't agree with parents pulling their kids out of school.
Again, very disappointing. Students should be in their class and teachers should be in the class with them.
Work to Rule starts Monday, meaning no extracurricular activities.
No, I don't feel good about that. The Christmas concert is going to be canceled, and come on, Karen. And my brother and me don't like it.
No matter the outcome, students and parents here today wanted teachers to know they have their support. And just after I left Memorial, the school was put on lockdown this afternoon. Police saying they received a complaint involving two men with rifles in a wooded area near the school. Now, there was believed to be no direct threat, and police are continuing their investigation tonight. Steve.
From the Sydney newsroom, CTV's Kyle Moore. Thank you, Kyle, and good night. At least one Halifax area school is telling students that they will be marked absent if they don't show up for classes tomorrow. School boards and the Nova Scotia government seem to be scrambling to make sure the students will be supervised before and after school when the Work to Rule begins on Monday. Today, the Education Minister says principals who don't provide supervision may be not fulfilling their duties under the Education Act. CTV's Sarah Ritchie has that angle tonight.
On Monday morning, Nova Scotia teachers will arrive at school just 20 minutes before the first bell. What's unclear today is how many students will already be there.
That's a major concern for us. We're seeking information from all of the school boards now with respect to when buses arrive, when teachers will be there.
The Halifax Regional School Board, for example, is changing its bus schedules to ensure that arrivals happen within that 20-minute timeline. In a memo to parents, the board also says school doors will be locked before then, and parents should not drop off their children early. The Education Department is still gathering information from other school boards.
And we recognize from the preliminary numbers we're getting that there are some schools where buses arrive prior to the 20 minutes.
The minister says she doesn't know how many boards have already hired extra supervisors or whether some will require more funding.
The president of the teachers union was not available for an interview today, but in an interview on Tuesday, she said teachers are not contractually obligated to supervise students before and after school.
They will be arriving 20 minutes before the bell. And if students are arriving before that, then the school boards, then the department will have to make sure that those students are safe.
The union says student safety outside of class time has always been up to the boards. But Minister Casey says principals are legally responsible for ensuring safety at school, and not providing supervision could go against the Education Act.
We now know that the Work to Rule has perhaps gone beyond that to a withdrawal of services.
The opposition, meanwhile, is calling for the two sides to try to work it out.
When there's so much at stake, a school year, Christmas concerts, the practicums for teachers in training, what's the reason not to try?
But as of today, there are no plans for negotiations of any kind. And a new survey today by Corporate Research Associates is giving us another picture of how Nova Scotians feel about a teacher strike. 47% of those respondents say they completely or mostly support strike action, while 44% say they're mostly or completely opposed to it. The head of Corporate Research Associates says that tells him both sides here are in a no-win situation.
Very interesting point. Sarah, thank you. CTV Sarah Ritchie from the newsroom in Halifax tonight. To other news now, one of the largest industrial employers in the region is facing more than a dozen pollution charges. J.D. Irving's pulp and paper mill is accused of releasing harmful substances into the St. John River on 15 occasions over more than a 2-year period. CTV's Mike Cameron has details.
Environment Canada says this Irving mill at the Reversing Falls violated the Fisheries Act in June of 2014 and then it did so 14 more times until August of this year. These charges were laid in court by a fisheries officer employed by Environment Canada. All of the counts are identical, except for the date they are said to have occurred. They accuse the company of depositing a substance harmful to fish into the adjacent St. John River a total of 15 times.
Well, this whole matter raises some questions.
Environmentalists like David Thompson say it's troubling that the problems are alleged to have occurred over a period of more than 2 years.
I'm really distressed that this matter, I guess, could go on, for that long of a period of time.
None of the allegations have been proven in court. The company has faced similar accusations in the past. In 1999 and 2010, Irving Pulp paid fines of $50,000 and $75,000 for violations of the Fisheries Act. In response to the latest allegations, the company told us today that the charges relate to issues that were self-reported by the mill. As for the situation today, Irving says the mill is currently in compliance with all environmental laws. The company will be back in court next month to enter a plea. A conviction would mean a minimum fine of $200,000 for each count. Mike Cameron, CTV News, St. John.
It's now about a year since the first Syrian refugee families began arriving, and that means their federal funding support is about to run out. The Nova Scotia government says it doesn't know how many Syrian refugees may need provincial assistance in the coming months. The Minister of Community Services says the province has not been keeping track of how many refugees are already in the workforce. But the minister says the department will deal with the applications as they come. Here's what the minister had to say about that today.
I don't have to tell you that the Department of Community Services is always under strain for income assistance. It's people who come to us. There's no cap on it. If you qualify, you're approved. For that.
And the department will be hiring an Arabic-speaking caseworker to deal with a potential influx of new cases. The historic Halifax Armory will be getting a major refit. The Victorian-era building has been a landmark for generations due to its distinctive red stonework. A survivor of the Halifax explosion, in more recent years it suffered the ravages of time. But now, CTV News has confirmed there are plans for a rehabilitation project that will take 7 years to complete. CTV's Ron Shaw has more.
The Halifax Armory looks a little gloomy during a December storm. The look isn't helped by the scaffolding set up to protect pedestrians from crumbling mortar and flakes of red stone loosened over the years. The west wall will be reconstructed over 2 years, starting in 2017. The main drill hall entrance will be widened. A second phase, starting in 2019, will see a complete refit both inside and outside, taking 5 years to finish. Local historian Blair Bede is glad to hear there will be new efforts to restore the building. There aren't many like it left.
I do know in Boston, I think they have an armories that became a convention center. But our armories is still used by the military, and it does date from 1893.
That date literally carved in stone on an archway, along with the name of the monarch at the time. Queen Victoria is seen here in a photo from about the same time. In this photo from the First World War, it can be seen that the Armory building hasn't changed very much at all, although everything else around it certainly has. The Halifax Common is covered with army tents in the photo, while the Armory can be seen just behind the field of canvas. Blair Bede hopes the scaffolding will disappear.
The scaffolding number 2, because it's the second edition of that scaffolding that was there before. It rotted to a point that it was becoming dangerous itself.
Penny McCauley, who owns a clothing boutique across the street from the Armory, hopes the work won't be disruptive.
Because I'm the only really retail building on this part of Kennard, I depend a lot on the street traffic, walk by and drive by.
But she too would be glad to see the scaffolding removed from a building that has seen so much history. Built as a symbol of a now faded empire, it was around for the Boer War, 2 World Wars, and other conflicts. The military says all the renovations will be done with care to preserve the heritage character of the building. Ron Shaw, CTV News, Halifax.
The Halifax explosion shattered the lives of so many, but some of those who survived took their memories and wrote them down. That includes some students who arrived at school on the morning of December 6, 1917, just minutes before the explosion. CTV's Suzette Belliveau tonight with 2 of their accounts of the explosion.
We had just finished singing Peace, Perfect Peace in the Assembly Hall, where the whole school had a short devotional service every morning before classes. The principal was standing on the platform, opening the large Bible to find a suitable part to read to us when the crash came.
Douglas Fraser was only 15 years old during the Halifax explosion. 99 years later, his daughter Elizabeth Ferguson recounts the experience her father wrote down before his death.
After a while, we all set out for our homes, and on our way, my chum and I saw all the horrible sights described. People badly cut and bleeding and bewildered. When we got home, most of the windows in our house were blown in, but no one was hurt.
Fraser spent his childhood in Halifax's South End.
This was my grandparents' home on the corner of Coburg and La Marchand.
A former music teacher, Ferguson says it's important to share the history of the explosion with others. And across the harbour on that horrific morning, another account. This one by Everett Wright. The 13-year-old boy writes about his experience after leaving school in Dartmouth's North End that morning. When I reached Jameson Street, the full force of the explosion damage was visible. 5 or 6 houses within my range of vision were in flames, and the rest were in ruins. Some of the occupants had been killed, and others were blinded by the flying glass. Miss Jenny Baxter was decapitated. Wright continues by saying at first some people thought it was a German air raid, but then he looked to the harbour and saw sailors swimming to shore. Back in Halifax, the Fraser family took in a family who lost everything and spent some time boarding up all the windows that had been shattered by the blast. A moment in time nearly a century ago, changing the lives of so many in Halifax and Dartmouth on that fateful morning. Suzette Beliveau, CTV News, Halifax.
Thank you, Suzette. Ahead in the news hour tonight, the fight against opioids. It's being called an epidemic. We're going to look at just how serious the problem is and what's being done around here to deal with these deadly drugs. Plus, meteorologist Cindy Day from Boston with the latest weather forecast. Coming next, though, changing the way we vote.
It essentially means that we should adopt a system where if a party gains 20% of the vote, it should acquire 20% of the seats.
MPs call on the Liberal government to design a proportional voting system and allow Canadians to vote on the idea in a referendum. Details are ahead here. Toronto stock market down 55 today. The market closed at 15,027.53. Venture was up by 2.5 points and just under 740. In New York, the Dow gained 68 and change. NASDAQ dropped 72.5. Tokyo Nikkei Exchange was up by more than 204. London down close to 31. The currency today was up more than 0.6 cents at 75.09 U.S. Bullion closed today up 10 cents U.S., 11.74, and oil at $50.93 a barrel, it's up $1.50. Baytex most active on the TSX Big Board. Local interest stock quotes here now. Gasoline prices are spinning a bit higher in New Brunswick. The regular self-serve is up by 2.3 cents a litre. The new maximum $1.06.8. At the diesel pump, a gain today of 1.8 to 115.3. The Nova Scotia reset is at midnight tonight. Good news if you have Air Miles. The company behind that program has announced it will cancel its expiry policy. The company cited feedback from consumers and uncertain legislation. The Air Miles rewards program was in the crosshairs of consumers after it decided that older points would be expiring at the end of this month. Now they won't be. Justin Trudeau promised Canadians a new way to vote to better reflect the support of smaller parties. But now his Democratic Institutions minister is being accused of dismissing the work of a special all-party committee on reform without even looking at it. CTV's Omar Sachedina has more.
You're at poll 45.
The All-Party Special Committee on Electoral Reform is recommending a referendum asking Canadians to choose between the current voting system or a new proportional system.
It essentially means that we should adopt a system where if a party gains 20% of the vote, it should acquire 20% of the seats.
There are various proportional voting systems, but the committee did not recommend a specific one.
The committee was not able to reach a unanimous position on what a new voting system for Canada should look like and how and by when that system should best be developed and implemented.
But in the campaign, Justin Trudeau made a clear promise.
We are committed to ensuring that the 2015 election will be the last federal election using first past the post.
Now in power, the Liberals have suggested enthusiasm for electoral reform has declined, even though the committee insists thousands of Canadians weighed in on the topic for their report.
Very few people got their 2 minutes at the mic in rooms with hundreds of people who care about this.
Liberals on the committee are questioning the Prime Minister's ability to keep his campaign promise and don't like the idea of a referendum.
Order.
A position the Conservatives pounced on in the House.
That's an insult to every Canadian in this country, and if he wants to change the way we vote, he has to have a referendum.
But the government refuses to commit to one, instead slamming the committee for not recommending a specific proportional representation system.
We asked the committee to help answer very difficult questions for us. They did not do that.
The committee's report is more than 300 pages long and includes the results of public consultations from across the country. But the government wants to keep consulting. It's sending out 13 million postcards and inviting Canadians to take part in an online survey. Omar Sechedina, CTV News, Ottawa.
Web polling tonight. Would you like to see a new voting system? And the options are these. Yes, I would like to see a new proportional voting system. Or no, I'm happy with the current system. Or I'm not sure, but I would like to see a referendum. In the web poll yesterday, we asked, how do you feel about the federal government approving 2 pipelines in Western Canada? We heard from well more than 1,000 people. 2/3 say they're pleased. Bodes well for Energy East. 19% are disappointed, displeased, and worried about the environmental impact. And the remaining 15% are undecided. They'd like to see more research. Donald Trump has now launched his so-called thank you tour with a trip to Indiana. The president-elect was visiting a small air conditioner manufacturing plant where he brokered a deal to keep more than 1,000 jobs from being moved to Mexico. The company will receive $7 million US worth of tax breaks and incentives over 10 years from the state of Indiana.
Companies are not going to leave the United States anymore without consequences.
The company was originally planning to shut down the facility, which employs 1,400 people, and moving its manufacturing to Mexico. Still ahead here, the health and medical news. Most people living with depression are not getting the help they need. We'll have more on that coming up. Also, we'll tell you how much it will cost you to buy everything found in the 12 Days of Christmas this year, and it's not getting any cheaper. But coming next, on the road to Boston, they're set to light Nova Scotia's Christmas tree on Boston Common. Meteorologist Cindy Day's forecast is coming up next from Beantown. Fredericton Live there at 6:31. Lots of snow on the ground. It has been a very, very snowy couple of days in many parts of New Brunswick. Really everywhere but coastal, Fundy coastal New Brunswick. Lots more snow in there today, but a really nice day a wee bit further south to the west in Boston, Mass, where we find meteorologist Cindy Day there on the Boston Common with the big Christmas tree.
That's right, Steve. And you know, I've said this before, it's not what you know, it's who you know. And so I cleared that good old rain out in time, pushed it off to Nova Scotia, just so we'd have dry conditions for the Christmas tree lighting. It's such an important day here. It really does kickstart the holiday season. There are other trees in Boston. This is the official Christmas tree, and Mayor Marty Walsh will be on stage, as will Mayor Mike Savage and the Premier of Nova Scotia. So it really is a festive, festive night, and thankfully the weather is cooperating. It's a very important year leading up to the 100th anniversary of the Halifax explosion, and we met a lot of Nova Scotians here on business, some Nova Scotians who are just here because they feel that connection and they want to be part of this beautiful tradition. So it's just a happy place to be, and we're having lots and lots of fun. I wish you could be here with me because it is a beautiful night. Now, let's begin with a look at the cross-Canada conditions. We are enjoying some of the warmest temperatures at this end of the country. At the other end, there's a pretty nice temperature profile in Victoria and Vancouver. A little heavier cloud cover there, though. And then it drops off considerably through the Canadian prairies, below freezing temperatures. As we move ahead to Winnipeg and then the Lakehead, -2, -3 degrees. A little bit milder in Sault Ste. Marie at +3. Temperatures are about seasonal through southwestern Ontario, eastern Ontario, and western Quebec, 4 to 6 degrees, but they are getting some snow on the backside of this trough that's pulling through. 9 degrees right now in Boston, I'd like to point out. It was 12 earlier today. And then across the Atlantic Canada, temperatures are quite a bit warmer on the southwest corner of Nova Scotia to the coolest spot in St. John's, Newfoundland at -1. Here's a look at the satellite radar, and you can certainly see what a mess of a day it's been. Lots of snow. The snow is still falling in many parts of New Brunswick. For Nova Scotia, there's not a lot of snow. Cape Breton, the Highlands, the extra lift that air mass gets over the higher elevations is triggering some snow, but it really is a rain event for much of Nova Scotia. We'll have a look at the warnings. There's a less wet wind warning in place over the Cape Breton Highlands. Gusts could peak at 140. They're not quite there right now, but close. And then the snowfall warnings beginning to wrap up across northern New Brunswick, but still in place. Be very careful. Even after the warnings are lifted, conditions are not going to be great. So overnight tonight, wet snow rain mix ending from west to east, gradual clearing by morning. It's going to continue to get warmer overnight tonight in Nova Scotia, and temperatures steady off in New Brunswick. Tomorrow in New Brunswick, there'll be some sunny periods, especially so south of Fredericton. Fredericton North, you're still caught up in a bit of a trough with a rain-snow mix. No significant accumulation after the system wraps up overnight tonight. For PEI, a mostly cloudy day, gusty winds out of the west, a chance of showers, high temperature near 2. Cape Breton, that's where the tree came from, Ainslie Glen. Southwest winds gusting 50 to 80 kilometers per hour. Afternoon showers are possible, but a very mild day. In the southwest corner of Nova Scotia, conditions mostly cloudy, could be a few spits of rain, but overall pretty fair. Let's have a look at the 7-day forecast. There's a strong ridge of high pressure building in. It comes into New Brunswick first and sits for a little while, so your weekend looks quite extraordinary. Lots of sunshine, some cloudy periods. That will take you right into and beyond the middle part of next week. For Nova Scotia, Saturday and Sunday, we hang on to more cloud than sun. Could be a few showers or wet flurries, but overall not a bad weekend. Probably a nice weekend to string out the Christmas lights. And for PEI as well, precipitation will linger a little while longer there as well. We could expect some flurries or showers and a chance of flurries Sunday. Temperatures do fall back as the ridge of high pressure builds in for Monday and for Tuesday. So it's not been a very nice day across Atlantic Canada, but conditions are improving, Steve, from west to east. So I'm going to send some of this fair weather that we enjoyed in this great city. I know you're a fan of Boston. We had a chance to walk around, and the people are so friendly. It's like being in Halifax. There are so many Nova Scotians here because of the Christmas tree lighting, but also people that come to visit relatives, and there are people in town for, I'm not sure what the NHL team is that plays here. They wear black and gold. Anyway, they're playing tonight, so there's a lot of people in town for the game. So it's a fun place to be tonight.
All right. Thank you, Cindy. Meteorologist Cindy Day back once more before we're through here at 7 o'clock. And in the interim, the health and medical news in the Lifeline. And something interesting for last coming up here as well. The cost of outfitting your true love at Christmas in the fabled 12 days of Christmas. But next, the opioid crisis in Canada reaches an epidemic level. How bad is it here? We're going to ask the medical director of the Regional Poison Control Center. Coming up next on CTV News.
Tonight's forecast is sponsored in part by Communications Nova Scotia.
Canada is in the midst of what has been described as an opioid crisis, an epidemic of narcotics use and abuse with products, both medicines prescribed by doctors for the treatment of pain legitimately, and illicit drugs like fentanyl, which are being sold on the street, causing overdoses and deaths. The incidence of these things now so great that the House of Commons Health Committee is recommending it be declared a public health emergency. Dr. Nancy Murphy sees the consequences of this epidemic up close, an American board-certified medical toxicologist. She's an emergency physician at the QE2 in Halifax and medical director of the IWK's Regional Poison Control Center. Dr. Murphy is with us here tonight. It's good to have you.
Thank you.
We're hearing a lot suddenly about opioids, but what specific drugs are we speaking about when we speak about opioids?
Okay. Well, there are many opioids, and I think ones that are most familiar to people, certainly recently, would be fentanyl. But the old school ones would be morphine or OxyContin, codeine, and so those are other examples. Dilaudid, or otherwise known as hydromorphone, is also very commonly used here too.
These are very effective painkillers, and they've been used very successfully for a long time with chronic and debilitating pain. When did we begin to see a lot of abuse of first of all, these legitimately prescribed opioids?
Well, certainly abuse of opioids has been around for centuries, really. And so when it became a lot more prominent, I suppose, would be about 2009 when the U.S. statistics saw that opioid deaths, or mostly opioid deaths, were sort of more frequent than motor vehicle collisions. Deaths due to motor vehicle collisions.
Why are opioids so dangerous? I mean, they're effective for pain, but why are they so dangerous?
Well, they're dangerous because they make you feel really good, and so people want to achieve that level of euphoria if they're seeking that out. They may come across it by accident when they are prescribed a medication and realize that it does make them feel really good, and they want to sort of go back to that feeling. That's the danger of sort of becoming sort of addicted to those medications.
Is it possible to use them without becoming dependent or addicted?
Absolutely. There are a lot of people who are successfully using them with really no problems, and so it's important to realize that they can be used safely and effectively for people with pain.
Do we know why some people get addicted?
Well, that's probably a whole other conversation. I think there are multiple factors involved. I think the substance use disorder, which is really the new terminology for addiction, is multifactorial in sort of how it comes about. There are social factors, environmental factors, genetic factors,
It's not just the chemical factors.
Exactly.
Then. Okay, what signs of this epidemic, and I think you agree it is an epidemic or a crisis.
Yes.
What signs of it are you seeing in the Poison Control Center?
Well, in the Poison Control Center, we see regularly, we have reports of opioid overdoses. And certainly I see them firsthand often in the emergency department.
How often are you seeing them?
Well, I mean, I would say every couple of shifts I do, we'll see one at least.
Would that be every week or more then?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, and that's just me.
Are you seeing deaths as well?
You know.
I mean, are we hearing that people are dying?
Yes, there are deaths, and I think the medical examiner certainly has a better handle on the number of deaths, because what I'm seeing, obviously, is just from a couple of points of view, through the Poison Center and through the emergency department.
Is it accurate to say, not to interrupt you, but is every overdose potentially lethal?
In a sense, yes. If they aren't in the right place and being treated, they could certainly be at risk of death. The reason opioids are so dangerous for causing fatalities is that they basically tell the brain to, stop breathing. Your brain no longer is reminding you to breathe. And so when you stop breathing, obviously there's no oxygen to the brain, and therefore all systems break down.
I want to talk specifically about fentanyl, because we're hearing a great deal about fentanyl. Does fentanyl have a legitimate medicinal use, or is it strictly an illicit narcotic?
So yes, it absolutely has legitimate use, and it's very useful in the emergency department for people with acute severe pain, because it really acts very quickly. And so we use it intravenously in the emergency department for all kinds of things, procedures, painful conditions. And for people with chronic pain, there are various methods for which it's used, specifically fentanyl patches, among other things, but the patches are used for managing hard-to-control pain.
We are seeing, as I understand it, a sudden increase in the amount of illicit fentanyl, and it's working its way across the country. Are we seeing it here?
We are, but certainly not to the degree that they're seeing it in Western Canada yet. But to me, it's only a matter of time, and I think we're at a distinct advantage right now because we haven't been hit as hard that we can take steps to prevent it.
Now, if fentanyl is 100 or 1,000 times more powerful than morphine, this carfentanil, which is now beginning to arrive, is said to be 10,000 times more powerful than morphine. So how little carfentanil would it take to be lethal?
A grain or two of salt, the equivalent thereof.
A grain?
And even fentanyl, that's why when I talk about potency of a drug, that's a pharmacological term that tells you that you only need a tiny dose, like in micrograms instead of milligrams, to cause a big effect on the body.
But that's frightening when you consider how little a grain would be.
Absolutely.
A salt shaker would be billions of grains, or hundreds of millions, I suppose. So what do you think we should be doing to address this?
Well, I think that actually we've been doing things to address it for years. In fact, the the College of Physicians and Surgeons of Nova Scotia, with Dr. Grant at its helm, instituted the prescription monitoring program several years ago, which has been, incredibly useful to clinicians. Because at any point, if somebody needs a prescription, we can look up where they've been going, how much they've been getting.
And people have been overprescribed. This is a fact. And
Yes.
Dr. Grant has recently said so. There are
Yes,
too many of these drugs being prescribed to too many people.
Yeah, and so I think that leadership has come, over the last few years, we've seen improvements in that and sort of increased awareness of that. But I think that the most urgent thing that we need to do is harm reduction. So the take-home naloxone kits, that program needs to be widely expanded and made accessible to people who need it when they need it. It's not going to be in people's living rooms, unless we put it there.
So when there's an overdose, somebody can quickly deal with it themselves or have someone near them do it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think there's a move certainly towards that. And for instance, in Ontario, you could go in without a prescription to any community pharmacy and get a naloxone kit for free. As long as you get the training that goes along with it, that's a huge harm reduction measure that could save lives.
We've only really scratched the surface on this, but we're glad to get a few minutes with you. It's a topic that's going to be recurring in the news, I'm sad to say. Good of you to come.
Thank you very much.
Toxicologist Dr. Nancy Murphy, who's also the head of the Regional Poison Control Unit at the IWK. Back with more in just a moment. Health and medical news tonight. Most people with depression around the world don't get the minimal amount of treatment needed for their condition. This is according to some new research featured in our Lifeline tonight with CTV's Priya Sam.
In a new study, Harvard researchers reviewed data from 50,000 people in 21 countries. Only 1 in 5 people with depression received adequate treatment in high-income countries, but in the poorest nations, only 1 in 27 people were getting suitable care. Depression is the leading cause of disability worldwide. A task force studying the legalization of marijuana says it will give the Liberal government its report as soon as it is available in both official languages. The team says it expects it will take about 2 weeks for the document to be translated into English and French. The report is expected to help guide Ottawa as it works on legislation to legalize pot by the spring of next year. The panel spoke with ordinary Canadians about their views on the issue, as well as representatives of the Uruguayan government, which is the only country with a regulatory system for legal access to cannabis. There's evidence white wine may increase the risk of melanoma, the most deadly type of skin cancer. A new study from Brown University followed over 200,000 adults for 18 years. It showed that each drink per day of white wine increased the risk of melanoma by 13%. White wine drinkers were also 73% more likely to be diagnosed with melanomas in parts of the body with less sun exposure. The same study found that beer, red wine, and liquor did not significantly affect melanoma risk. With health and medical news, I'm Priya Sam for the Lifeline.
We are going to take a brief break. Coming up next, a final look at the weather forecast for tomorrow. Work and School Friday morning with meteorologist Cindy Day as the News Hour continues. Moncton Live there at 6:53. Just before we conclude, a final word on the weather for Work and School tomorrow morning, and back to Boston with meteorologist Cindy Day on the Common there.
Steve, it is so magical here. In less than an hour, people will start to take the stage, but young and old are coming in and they're lining here. The Boston Common is just full of excitement because the tree, the beautiful, magnificent 14-meter white spruce, is about to be lit. The gift from Nova Scotia to the city of Boston to say thank you for such an amazing gesture shortly after the Halifax explosion. The weather could not have been any nicer, and I know that's not the case in the Maritimes. Let's have a look. The storm tracker is still very busy, very messy. The rain-snow line is traveling northward rather quickly. So the temperatures have been climbing over the past few hours. That'll be the case overnight tonight. In fact, it's going to warm overnight tonight. And by morning, we'll be in the mid-single digits in parts of Nova Scotia and southern New Brunswick. And that bodes well if you'd like to see some of this snow melt. The snowfall warning still in place for northern regions of New Brunswick. There's a less wet wind warning in place with gusts as high as 140 kilometers per hour. Wind gusts are high right now, and they'll diminish a little bit overnight. When you wake up tomorrow morning, mostly cloudy start to the day. A mix of sun and cloud in New Brunswick, clearing from west to east, getting better. We're saving the very best for the weekend. Steve?
All right, thank you, Cindy. Something interesting for last year tonight. The price tag you are looking to pay if you want to get your true love all of the items from the 12 days of Christmas. Now, PNC Bank has done the math, and the total comes to $34,363.49 U.S. That's a $230 increase over last year. So which items are responsible for driving up the cost? Well, it turns out it's difficult to get our hands on 2 turtle doves. The lack of availability means the birds cost 29% more than last year. You'll also pay more for 11 pipers piping and 12 drummers drumming. Cost of each is up nearly 3% due to wage increases. And again, that's in U.S. dollars. You'd have to add, you know, the exchange, duty, shipping, handling. It's a lot of money. E-Talk next, and then a lot of Big Bang Theories at 7:30, 8, and 8:30, and 9. Goldberg's at 9:30. The Russell Peters Christmas special on CTV at 10 o'clock. And then CTV National News with Lisa LaFlamme at 11.
Tonight, Canada's military justice system is fighting off charges it has no teeth. Plea deals, fines, and demotions for serious sexual offenses. We'll look at how it came to this and what, if anything, can be done. Later on CTV National News.
Thank you, Lisa. Tomorrow here on CTV News at 6. 1 year later, we're checking in with Syrian families to see how they're doing with the clock ticking on their federal funding. Living the Canadian dream or desperate to find a job. One of our stories tomorrow at 6 on CTV News. But that is your local news for tonight. If you're a bit late joining us, this broadcast begins again at 7 o'clock on CTV2. News is available all the time at atlantic.ctvnews.ca. And now, for my colleagues on both sides of our cameras, I'm Steve Murphy. Thank you for making CTV your home for news. Amanda has the news at 11:30, and we're all back here tomorrow afternoon at 5. So have a good evening and be well.
CTV News, the Maritime's #1 newscast.